A month before Sumner, Barnell Rhett, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, reported a bill to Congress providing for the dispatch of a three-man mission to secure the recognition of the Confederacy by the European powers. Rhett had certain notions as to what these men should do over there, but he could not give instructions to such emissaries. The making of treaties rested with the president, who seemed to believe that nothing more would be needed than a polite call on the various proper statesmen across the water, whereupon those dignitaries would spread their arms to welcome a new sister, bringing a dowry of precious cotton into the family of nations. This belief was emphasized by the fact that the man appointed to head the mission was William L. Yancey, the fiercest fire-eater of them all. For 15 years, the Southern answered to the most outspoken of Northern abolitionists, the Georgia-born Alabaman extended his defense of the particular institution to include a proposed reopening of the African slave trade, with the result that his name was the anathema to every liberal on the earth. In selecting Yancey to represent her, it was as if the South had plainly said to all of Europe, "To get cotton, you must swallow slavery." Nothing in his personality had shown that he would be armed with patience against discouragement or with coolness against rebuff, or indeed that he was in any way suited for a diplomatic post. Discouragement was not expected, however, let alone rebuff. Besides, Yancey having declined the minor cabinet job of Attorney General, the appointment solved the problem of what to do with him. Since that February evening on the gallery of the Exchange Hotel, when he presented The Man and the Hour to the crowd, no fitting use for his talents had been found. Now there was this, though some declared that he was being hustled off the scene as a possible rival before the election of a permanent president came around. However, that might have been when he and his associates, Pierre A. Rost and A. Dudley Mann, received their instructions from the State Department. Something came over Yancey that seemed to come over all fire-eaters when they were abruptly saddled with the responsibility for using more than their lungs and tongues. Something ample, when he was offered the honor of firing the first shot of the war. Returning from the conference, Yancey went to Rhett and told him of the instructions. They had agreed at the outset that the power to make commercial treaties was necessary to the success of the mission. However, the commissioners had not been given such power. All they were to do was to explain the conflict in terms of the rightness of the Southern cause, point out the Confederacy's devotion to low tariffs and free trade, and to make a delicate allusion to the probable stoppage of cotton shipments if the war continued without European intervention. Hearing this, Rhett shared his friend's dismay. Then he told Yancey, "If you will take my advice as your friend, do not accept the appointment. If you have nothing to propose and nothing to treat about, you must necessarily fail. Demand of the president the powers essential to your mission, or stay at home." Whatever his qualms and misgivings, Yancey did not take his friend's advice. Sailing on the eve of Sumter, the commissioners reached England in late April to discover that the nation they represented was in the process of being increased from 7 states to 11, doubled in size east of the Mississippi, and more than doubled in wealth and population. Soon afterwards, May 3rd, they secured an interview with Lord John Russell, Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, who had replied to their request for an audience that he would be pleased to hear them, but that, under present circumstances, I shall have but little to say. The interview was as one-sided as his lordship predicted. Having heard the envoys out, he replied, without committing his government in the slightest, that the Confederacy's request for recognition would be placed before the cabinet at an early date. 6 days later, there was a second, briefer meeting, and that was all. In Paris, Napoleon III was more genteel and less forthright, though he did make it clear in the end that, however much he wished to intervene, France would not act without England. So Yancey and Mann, leaving Rost to watch Napoleon, returned to London to try again.